That flash of heat in your chest, the words that replay in your mind for hours, the feeling of being knocked off balance by someone else's comment. What if you could make that feeling obsolete? Most people try to build a thick skin, but 99% miss the final internal rewiring that makes you truly unshakable, leaving them to fight the same emotional battles for the rest of their lives. Decoding triggers? Before we can even dream of being unbothered, we have to become behavioral investigators of our own internal world. We have to understand what is actually happening in our brains and bodies when we get triggered. That sudden, overwhelming emotional response isn't a character flaw. It's a biological process. It's something called an amygdala hijack. Your amygdala is the threat detection center of your brain, and when it perceives a social threat, a cutting remark, a condescending tone, being ignored in a meeting, it floods your system with cortisol and adrenaline. It bypasses your logical brain, the prefrontal cortex, and throws you straight into fight, flight, or freeze mode. This is why, in those moments, you can't think clearly. Your heart races, your palms sweat, your stomach clenches. Your body is reacting as if you've seen a predator, and in a social sense, you have. The first step toward unflappable calm is to stop judging this reaction and start gathering data on it. Your physical sensations are your first and most reliable cues. The moment you feel that familiar heat in your face or that pit in your stomach, your job is not to react to the external person, but to turn your attention inward and simply notice. Think of it as your internal alarm system going off. The goal isn't to frantically shut it off, it's to calmly walk over, look at the control panel, and read the data. What exactly set it off? Was it the words themselves, the person's tone, the situation? Get curious. Was it a feeling of being disrespected, a threat to your status or competence, a feeling of being unfairly treated? We all have our own unique constellations of triggers, but they usually fall into a few core categories. One of the biggest is a perceived status threat. This happens when someone questions your intelligence, your authority, or your place in the social hierarchy. It can be as overt as a boss publicly criticizing your work, or as subtle as a friend making a joke about your new hobby. Another major trigger is a violation of fairness. When you see someone cheating the system, taking credit for your work, or acting with blatant hypocrisy, it can light up your brain's injustice circuits. And a third, incredibly common trigger is feeling unheard or invisible. When you're repeatedly interrupted, when your opinion is dismissed, or when you feel like you're talking to a wall, it's a deep-seated trigger that taps into our fundamental human need for connection and validation. For 1 week, I want you to become a trigger detective. Keep a small journal or a note on your phone. Every time you feel that jolt of being bothered, write down 3 things: the situation, the physical feeling, and the core need that was threatened: respect, fairness, connection, etc. This isn't about dwelling on the negative. It's about building a map of your own emotional landscape. You cannot navigate a territory you do not understand. By simply observing these patterns without judgment, you are performing a profound act. You are separating your identity from your reaction. The reaction is just a biological event, a piece of data. And once you have that data, you can begin to choose your response instead of being a slave to your reaction. This awareness is the foundation upon which true emotional resilience is built. Building buffers. Once you've mapped your triggers, you can begin to architect a new response. The key to breaking the cycle of an amygdala hijack is creating space. You need to build a buffer, a small pocket of time and psychological distance, between the trigger and your reaction. This buffer is what allows your logical brain, your prefrontal cortex, to come back online and help you choose a more effective and empowered response. Without this space, you are on autopilot, and your emotional brain is driving the car. With this space, you are back in the driver's seat. This isn't about suppression, it's about strategic pausing. It's the difference between a knee-jerk reaction and a considered response. And you can build this buffer using both verbal and nonverbal tools. Verbally, you need to have a few go-to buffer phrases ready. These are neutral, non-committal statements that buy you precious seconds to breathe and think. They are your conversational pause buttons. For example, when someone says something provocative, instead of immediately defending yourself or lashing out, you can use a phrase like, "That's an interesting perspective, I'll have to think about that." Or, "Let me make sure I understand what you're saying." Or even a simple, These phrases are brilliant because they don't signal agreement or disagreement. They signal that you are processing, which is a high competence cue. They stop the emotional momentum of the conversation in its tracks and give you a moment to let the initial wave of adrenaline subside. You are not ignoring the comment, you are taking control of the timeline for your response. Non-verbally, you can create a buffer by grounding yourself in your physical body. When you feel a trigger, the first thing that often goes is your breath. It becomes shallow and rapid. The most powerful thing you can do in that moment is to consciously take one deep, slow breath. Inhale through your nose for 4 counts, hold for a moment, and exhale slowly through your mouth. This simple action sends a signal to your nervous system that you are not in mortal danger, and it helps to deactivate the fight or flight response. Another powerful physical technique is to feel your feet on the floor. Wiggle your toes, feel the solid ground beneath you. This brings your awareness out of the chaotic narrative in your head and back into the physical reality of the present moment. It's a literal act of grounding yourself when you feel emotionally untethered. Combining these techniques is where the magic happens. Imagine a colleague makes a passive-aggressive comment in a meeting. The old you might have blushed and gone silent, or snapped back with a defensive remark. The new you feels the trigger, and instead of reacting, you initiate your buffer protocol. You take a slow, silent breath. You feel your feet on the floor. Then you look at them calmly and say, I want to make sure I'm understanding your point. Could you clarify what you mean? You have not been aggressive. You have not been passive. You have been assertive and in control. You have created a space where you can now choose how to proceed from a place of logic and strength, rather than from a place of emotional reactivity. This buffer doesn't make the trigger disappear, but it gives you back your power of choice, and that changes everything. Reframing reality. Building a buffer gives you the space to think, but what should you be thinking in that space? This is where we move from managing our reactions to fundamentally changing our perception of the event itself. This is the art and science of reframing. A reframe is a conscious shift in your interpretation of a situation. It's about changing the story you tell yourself about what just happened. The event itself is neutral. It's a piece of data. The pain and bother come from the meaning we assign to it. When someone cuts us off in traffic, the event is just a car changing lanes. The anger comes from the story we tell. That person is selfish. They disrespected me. They think their time is more important than mine. The person who remains unbothered isn't the one who suppresses that anger. They're the one who instinctively tells a different, more empowering story. The first and most powerful reframe is to shift from personalization to observation. When someone makes a negative comment, our default setting is to make it about us. What did I do wrong? They must not like me. I'm not good enough. A reframe asks a different question. What does this behavior tell me about them? A critical comment is often not a reflection of your worth, but a broadcast of their own insecurity, stress, or unmet needs. Is it possible their criticism of your project has less to do with your work and more to do with the pressure they're under from their own boss? Is it possible your friend's judgmental comment about your life choice is actually a reflection of their own fear or regret? When you can view their behavior as information about their internal state rather than a verdict on yours, it loses its power to wound you. You shift from being the target to being the behavioral scientist. Another powerful reframe is to move from assuming malice to assuming ignorance or struggle. Our brains love to create villains. It makes the world feel simpler. But the truth is, most of the time, people aren't actively trying to hurt you. They are often just clumsy, thoughtless, or wrapped up in their own problems. Adopting the mindset of they are probably doing the best they can with the tools they have can be profoundly liberating. This doesn't mean you excuse or tolerate bad behavior. You can still set firm boundaries, but it drains the situation of its personal venom. It allows you to address the behavior from a place of calm clarity rather than from a place of personal injury. You're no longer reacting to a villain's attack. You're responding to a person's lack of skill. Finally, you can reframe the situation by focusing on your long-term goals. Ask yourself, will this matter in 5 hours, 5 days, 5 years? This question instantly puts the momentary trigger into a much larger perspective. Often, the things that bother us in the moment are incredibly insignificant in the grand scheme of our lives. Then ask, will reacting emotionally to this move me closer to or further from my goals? If your goal is to be seen as a calm, competent leader, then getting into a petty argument with a difficult coworker moves you further away. Choosing to respond with grace and composure, even when provoked, moves you closer. This reframe connects your immediate choice to your larger identity and aspirations. It transforms the trigger from a threat into an opportunity to practice the very qualities you wish to embody. The core shift. We've decoded our triggers, built buffers, and learned to reframe reality. These are the external and internal mechanics of appearing unbothered. They are an incredible set of tools. But to make this state of being permanent, to move from acting as if to truly being a person who is not easily bothered, we have to make one final fundamental shift. This is the piece that 99% of people miss. They get so good at managing the triggers that they spend their whole life playing defense. The core shift is to stop playing defense and start building an internal world so solid, so self-sufficient, and so aligned with your own values that external events lose their power to shake you. It's about changing your source of validation from external to internal. For most of us, our sense of well-being is incredibly fragile because it is outsourced. We feel good when we get praise, when people agree with us, when things go our way. We feel bad when we are criticized, when we are misunderstood, when we face obstacles. Our emotional state is a thermometer, simply reflecting the temperature of the room around us. The core shift is to become the thermostat. You are the one who sets the temperature. Your sense of peace, worth, and stability is generated from within, independent of external conditions. This is not arrogance, it is emotional sovereignty. It is the quiet, unshakable knowledge that you are okay right now, regardless of anyone else's opinion or behavior. How do you build this internal thermostat? It's a practice. It begins by consciously curating what you focus on. You make a non-negotiable commitment to your own peace. This means you stop engaging in conversations, consuming media, or doom scrolling on topics that you know will activate your threat response for no productive reason. It means you proactively fill your mind with things that are constructive, inspiring, and aligned with your values. It's about building a rich inner life through learning, through hobbies, through mindfulness, through gratitude that is far more compelling and interesting than the petty dramas that used to capture your attention. When your own garden is thriving, you're less bothered by the weeds trying to grow on the other side of the fence. The final piece of this is to become your own primary source of approval. You must learn to see yourself, to validate yourself, and to be proud of yourself for your efforts, not just your outcomes. At the end of each day, instead of replaying the one negative comment someone made, you must train yourself to acknowledge 3 things you handled well. Did you stay calm when you felt triggered? Did you speak your truth kindly but firmly? Did you honor a promise you made to yourself? When you get your validation from your own integrity, you are no longer hungry for the empty calories of praise from others, and you are no longer devastated by their criticism. Their words become just that, words. They are data points you can choose to consider or discard, but they no longer have the power to define your reality or dictate your emotional state. This is the ultimate freedom. It is not about becoming a cold or unfeeling robot. It is the opposite. It is about becoming so deeply rooted in your own sense of self, so secure in your own worth, and so committed to your own peace that you can engage with the world with an open heart, without the constant fear of being thrown off balance. You can listen to criticism without crumbling. You can face conflict without panicking. And you can navigate life's challenges with a quiet, powerful grace. You stop acting as if nothing bothers you, and you simply become a person for whom inner peace is more important than any external drama. Be honest, what's the one comment or situation that can still get under your skin, no matter how hard you try?